The first main campaign against apartheid took place in 1952. At the end of 1951, a joint organizing committee made up of the African National Congress and the South African Indian Congress planned a campaign against 6 unjust laws passed by the apartheid state. The 6 laws were the stock limitation laws, the pass laws, the Separate Representation of Voters Act, which sought to eliminate the colored franchise, the Bantu Authorities Act, the Suppression of Communism Act, and the Group Areas Act. This campaign, they issued an ultimatum to the South African state, to D.F. Malan, to say you repeal these 6 unjust laws or else be met by a campaign of defiance against them. Now, they obviously expected the state not to repeal the laws, but they were prepared for a defiance campaign. But even before the defiance campaign would begin on the 26th of June, 1952, there was already on the 6th of April, mass rallies throughout the country. The 6th of April, 1952 was the 300th year anniversary of the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck in South Africa on the 6th of April, 1652. So while white South Africa was celebrating the arrival of van Riebeeck, those who resisted against apartheid portrayed this as like celebrating 300 years of exploitation and minority rule. And they argued that all those who fought against colonialism and resistance were not being commemorated, and they sought these rallies against the celebrations of van Riebeeck's arrival. On the 26th of June, 1952, 2 years after the 26th of June, 1950 National Day of Protest and Mourning that we spoke about previously, the Defiance Campaign would begin. And the purpose of the Defiance Campaign was for volunteers to actively defy apartheid laws. So go into the Bantustans or the African reserves without the required documentation. Different racial groups would stand in the lines that they were not allowed to, and they would invite arrest. And the idea is that they would show the state that these are unjust laws, and they fight against it, they get arrested, overflow the prison stations, cripple the economies. And you can think of the Defiance Campaign in 2 ways. You can see of it as not being successful in the sense that it didn't repeal any of the 6 unjust laws. The state would not do that. But it was a success in the mass participation of people who joined. It completely changed the image of the African National Congress. 8,500 people were arrested during the Defiance Campaign. So in that regard, it was a massive success. It was called off at the end of 1952. By November, there was too much violence that was taking place, too much violence that was a consequence. People like Nelson Mandela said that this violence was done not by volunteers of the Defiance Campaign, but by agent provocateurs who were being financed by the apartheid state to make it violent, to discredit the Defiance Campaign. But at the end of the Defiance Campaign, the whole image of the African National Congress was changed. Prior to the Defiance Campaign, there was about 7,000 paid up members of the African National Congress. By the end of 1952, as a consequence of the Defiance Campaign, it had risen to 100,000 fully paid up members of the ANC. So it went from a small organization into a mass organization. So in that regard, the Defiance Campaign was a major success. And this can also be illustrated by a number of quotations. One quotation by an individual who's being interviewed about why he joined the ANC. And this is a quotation, and this is in the book by John Pampalis, if you want to read that chapter. But the quote is, "I started joining the ranks exactly when I saw that now the ANC was on the stand of making some protest with the government, that people now were practically taking a certain line. 1952, Defiance Campaign. Then I enlisted my name. But 1949, when they asked me to do so, I refused because I said they were always asking for, quote, point of order, Mr. Chairman, end of quote. Their meeting was just becoming a flop all the time. Because of such things, I felt no, I could not join such things. 1952, when they started taking action, then I joined their ranks in Brakpan. Before 1952, the African National Congress was not taken as a very serious organization that could do the government any harm. But 1952, they started seeing that things were becoming hot, that the people were being called on to defy. Then even some of the teachers started to go behind the doors, started joining the ANC. So that quotation tells you that how the image of the ANC had changed. As I said earlier, before the Second World War, the ANC had this image of an elite organization of professionals who were not representative. It was a very fancy organization. Ordinary people did not feel like it represented them. And even at the end of the Second World War, the ANC was trying to become more radical, more mass organization, more of a mass organization, more of a militant organization. It still struggled to change that image, but the Defiance Campaign had managed to change that image. And after the Defiance Campaign, lots of ordinary people not only felt that they could be part of the ANC, but also felt that the ANC was actually something that was worth being a part of. A quotation from Nelson Mandela about the importance of the Defiance Campaign, which echoes the same sentiments, is that the ANC was more talk than action. The ANC was more talk than action. We had no paid organizers, no staff, and a membership that did little more than pay lip service to our cause. As a result of the campaign, obviously talking about the Defiance Campaign, our membership swelled up to 100,000 from less than 7,000. The ANC emerged as a truly mass-based organization with an impressive corps of experienced activists who braved the police, courts, and jails. The stigma usually associated with imprisonment had been removed, and this was a significant achievement, for fear of a prison is a tremendous hindrance to the liberation struggle. So this quote from Nelson Mandela also shows the importance of the Defiance Campaign in actually changing the way in which the struggle against apartheid is going to take place. After the Defiance